as though anybody in our group could go out and use it. And that wasn't true. It's for grandmothers only. And it would be a model for us to use, but it wouldn't be something we can use because over 50% of the group is male, which prevents them from joining the grandmothers.
Yeah, yeah. I think it misses it misses things, and then you're right, it overemphasizes other things. What seems to be better than OpenAI, but given kind of realistic summaries of stuff. I like Otter AI as well. Have you tried that?
No, the one I'm using is Claude.
Claude, all right. I'll have a look at Claude as well.
Yeah, and I'm not really the user. I'm just a watcher of how the interface is being used. And when I'm a participant, I'm taking notes and looking at the group sizes and things. I made an advance in the group theory that we're working on and realized that after you've got a second level group, which is anywhere from 8 to 20 people doing things, the next advance is to shrink that group, not expand it.
Right.
Be-
Okay.
yeah, you want to shrink it to just the people who are going to get things done by working together and make a third level group of like 5 to 8, but with a function. And that
So
way,
you
when they're functioning, now they're expanding, and the people who come in all have functions to accomplish the group function. Whereas a first level group
yeah,
has the function is just everybody meets each other.
yeah,
In,
yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah, because then you've got the more focus you've got on one particular thing, the more likely you are to pull people in who are interested and prepared to do stuff.
yeah. I've also got a major problem that I can see forthcoming, that the people who get there first set things up for their own benefit, and people with good ideas get shot down because, oh, we've already done that, but they haven't done it well, and they're stuck because people tend to like their own stuff better than they like outside stuff, even if the outside stuff is a lot more functional.
Right. Yeah.
I'm finding it really tough to relate to people again. I need to get outside with the people locally and do things here, as opposed to just being isolated with people that I talk to through the internet, but not having a real home team to sit around with and discuss things.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
fun.
yeah. Go ahead.
It's funny how Discord used to provide that to us for 6, 7 years ago when we first started using it. We'd show up at the same time every day, and for a couple of hours, we'd have the same group. Now it doesn't work like that anymore.
Right now, I'm locked out. Well, I've got one Discord account that I can get onto, which is my phone. But because I changed my phone number and they've got two-factor authentication, I can't get into the other ones. So,
Yeah, I have never allowed them to put me on 2 factor identification. In fact, I still continually get notes from the Microsoft and the Google folks because I've given them phone numbers as backup for the one site, but they want a backup email address. And Google sends everything to an email address I have no access to.
right, yeah, no, I've got about 100 email addresses because every time I think about a new project, I set up an email address on Google for it. So
Yeah.
loads of them. But yeah, I can see the problem.
Yeah. The Google Meets now has picked me up in that old email address that I don't have access to. And so with this new group that I'm in doing community, they all think I'm on Google.
Right.
But I sort of had to let the Google account be because Google now operates all the phones. Anything that's an Android runs on Google. And so even though I quit Google back in 2014 when they booted me off of Blogger because I couldn't tell them when I first joined Blogger, they wouldn't believe me because I was on Blogger before Google bought it.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
wasn't going to play guessing games to figure out when Google bought Blogger that they got my name on the list. So once I stopped blogging on Blogger, I lost 10,000 followers or so. And I figured that, well, that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. Little did I know how difficult it is to reestablish followers after you've lost them.
Yeah, it is. It's a, it's a tricky thing, and just keeping people engaged is a tricky thing.
Yeah, it is. If you've got Nextspace going, you're welcome to drop me a note in X to let me know to go there. But I've only been checking X maybe once a week to see what's going on, except that yesterday, when I went back and looked at that AI conversation, I thought it was good enough that I put it out on X and Blue Sky and Minds, which are the three different social media that I was running when I decided to quit. So I guess I haven't really quit. I guess I'm still peripherally involved. But at the moment, I'm trying to figure out how to do something with the world population that changes the system from rigged economics to fair free exchange because it's ridiculous that if you and I want to trade something, we have to feed 20% of our work on each side back to our governments for permission to exchange.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, yeah. You just don't tell them. That's the way around that. But you're taking a chance if you don't tell them.
Well, I dropped out of the money system completely. When I was doing the new way, I wasn't the radio show. Didn't have any income at all at that point, and I was trying to do things as best I can, cobbling together free stuff.
Yeah,
Now I'm pretty much fiscally set for the time being, and I can even go out and do things when I want to do them, spur of the moment. And so it's a different lifestyle, but I'm thinking that it's going to be part of a quantum jump and that I will get back involved in a lot of things that affect lots of people, but in a way that doesn't really contribute to democracy, as they call it, because if everybody wants to have a say, nothing's going to get done. You got to trust your people who know what they're doing to do what they do in the areas that they do it and not think that everybody should be able to debate everything.
yeah. I think that's true. That's true on specific projects. It's when I was running the philosophy group, we had a core group of three of us that would meet early and kind of organize bits and pieces between us, just little things like who takes the lead in asking questions and stuff like that. Simple stuff, but it was easier to do it in a core group of three, and then just have everybody else come in with a little bit of structure already there.
That concept of core group is very key to the group theory. And that's where I think that advance in shrinking the second order group back to a third order group that provides the core group for everything after that is going to be workable. At first, I thought that a small, livable community, 1,000 people, would be fourth order. Now I've kicked it back to sixth order. We're not going to get there from human scale by fourth order. Fourth order is only 100 people, and that's not enough. Well, 144 by the numbers, but everything greater than 89 can be grouped into the 144 based on Fibonacci sequence.
Right.
And the trick to it all is that when you're getting to the bigger numbers like 144 or 277, no, 244, and then 377, is that you take your base number and reset it to 1. So if your group is 144 people now, it's a third order group, but use the mathematics of 1, 1, 2, 3, and 5 instead of the mathematics of 144, 233, 377, and 610, because the latter mathematics are way more complicated, but it's an exact parallel on the Fibonacci scale.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm kind of I'm a lot more local now than I was, because obviously I can't. Well, I'm trying my best to connect with a lot more local people since COVID, but because
Mm-hmm.
I need the support network locally as well as something. I mean, I've got a few people online that I talk to, but not there's not that many. And local is you know where people are likely to be, so it's always useful to have somebody. If you know somebody's going to be at a particular meet, you can always just get a taxi or something.
Yep. Yeah, I live in a place that's an hour away from any place that has people. So if I don't have the people here in my local community to deal with on a day to day basis, I don't get out at all to see anyone except the people who are online.
Yeah, I've got the main people I'm speaking to at the moment are taxi drivers and ambulance drivers, because that's the people I see regularly. It tends to be the same group of half a dozen or a dozen ambulance drivers that take me to the hospital and bring me home. So I'm having long conversations about well, about Celtic spirituality and all sorts of things.
Good.
It's actually very, very positive, because I'm finding people who I can have regular conversations with, even in the strangest places.
Yeah, well, the people who I hang out with here in this rural community are sharp people, but they've all got their mini agendas. And so now I've got a friend, and she just doesn't like Trump or Elon Musk. And I turned that off long ago, but now she's getting me to talk about those things again. And we really need a way to localize politics and make the organized community of large scale politics subservient to local politics, and get it so that maybe we make it so that local corporations serve their individual communities by bringing in services from larger corporations who really have no say in what's going on. Because I'm just tired of Microsoft hijacking my computer, giving it an update, resetting all my passwords, and making it more difficult to use. I didn't never hired Bill Gates to get into my life and waste my time.
I can understand the frustration of that. It's ridiculous. If when I was prepping my radio show on a Friday afternoon, and suddenly the computer goes into an upgrade mode, and it's like, all right, here we go again. because you don't
Yeah,
know if it's going to work at the end of it. You've got to start. You've got to double check everything at the end of it.
and it's usually for no good purpose, but they'll wait until you're into something rather than hijacking it as soon as you turn it on. I don't know. I'm I have some radically unsocial popular ideas on how to make things work, but they do not like when you go out and execute whole classes of people.
Right. Okay. That's fairly radical, Lenny. Fairly radical.
It's not anything that hasn't been done before by world leaders. And in fact, we can look back to this COVID 19 stuff and say that was exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, it is exactly what they were doing. They just pick the most vulnerable people that are easiest to kill and pick them off one by one until you've got 20 million or however many it was.
That, that, and they either really snookered the medical community or the medical community is stupid. I think they got snookered that they're not stupid. But now that I'm looking at the mechanisms of biochemistry, a lot of what they say for the mechanisms of disease make no sense and don't work. Um, the the thing on viruses has me to the point where I don't think there's a virus. I don't
Yeah,
think
I agree with you.
what they call virus is what happens when a cell dies and then its constituent parts get reincorporated into the body in different ways. And so you
Yeah,
get pieces of cells. That's what viruses are supposedly.
yeah.
But
I've kind of got to that point as well. So I'm at the point where I'm starting to not believe that the disease exists now as well. I think
well,
I think
your healing modalities that you're using prove that it doesn't exist, that disease is a state of mind, dis-ease. And I don't know. I have been losing my balance lately. I
right,
fell on Monday and crashed into a chair and totally destroyed the chair. Fortunately, I didn't pass out when I fell, so I was able to get up and get to a room that had a couch and lay down, but I was out of it for the next 4 hours.
right. Okay, that could be a
It
few
was
things.
sauna related. I had just
Right,
gotten out of the sauna, so
it's your
it,
blood
it
pressure, probably.
yeah, it was one of those things where sitting in the sauna, you can tell when your blood sugar hits zero. And at that point, I got out of the sauna and went into a hot bath and laid in the hot bath for a while. But on getting out of the hot bath, I must have been more cloudy mentally than I thought because it wasn't more than a minute after I had stood up that I was down.
Right, yeah, that sounds like your blood pressure to me. Not that I'm an
Yeah,
expert, but
I, I've had this happen 3 or 4 different times in the past. And in some ways, I almost think it signals a jump in timeline because something has to happen to break you out of a timeline, and passing out and coming back can give you that differentiation so that you're out of the timeline you're no longer in. I think timelines are individual and wrapped around each other like coaxial cable, so that once you've intersected with somebody else, it gets your timeline synchronized. But
we're
e-
definitely synchronized, I think, Lenny.
yeah, each different timeline is repeated on a different scale, but with different material objectives, but the same overall paradigm. and narrative, so that at any given time, we see what's going on this earth we share, but you could be in a place where a lifetime of your 80 years lasts 80 years, and I could be in a place where my lifetime of 80 years lasts a microsecond. But because time works the same at each different scale, we'd never know that we were different.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, more and more now that I've cured this heart attack business, it's becoming apparent to me that everything is misperception. It's all like all the disease stuff is misperception, and because immunics works by you take it out mentally. You don't. Sometimes there's a physical a component to it, but most of the time you're just going through like spiritual bodies or bodies that aren't physical. That they've got a like a list of 4 bodies, and you just take the disease out of each of those bodies, and you'll get a response. You'll get a feeling that it's gone, and then when you get that feeling, you've cured it. Basically, that's how it works. It's the simplest thing in the world. When you get used to the formula, it's the simplest thing in the world, but it looks really, really complicated.
Hmm. Well, I think one of the best decisions you made was to not let them give you statins or beta blockers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had to argue about it though. The
Yeah.
consult the cons the consultant said if your heart doesn't improve, she said this is how your heart's going to improve. You take the beta blockers and the statins or whatever for like I've got a couple of years before my transplant, so I've got a couple of years to get my heart right again. And she literally said to me, if you don't take the pills, we can't put you on the transplant list. But actually, what she meant was, if your heart doesn't improve, we can't put you on the transplant list.
Yeah, yeah. I find that it's very disingenuous as to what they say and what they really mean.
So the way that I interpreted that was, all right, I'm not taking the pills, but I'll figure out a way to fix the heart, which is not the way she was expecting me to interpret it.
Yeah, I think that acting from a point of knowledge, even if the knowledge is something that you believe and other people don't, gives you enough standing that you can do the self healing. And Immunix seems to be working for you just fine. No need to change it. But as it comes to the point where you're ready to get the transplant, watch for controlling behaviors in the medical profession and don't let them pull that shit.
I'm way more confident now that I've sorted my heart out to be able to tell people no. Way, way more confident than I was a year ago.
Good.
Because I was really sick. Like this time last year, I was very, very sick, and I couldn't do anything. So I needed the help. But now that I'm back, I feel like I'm back to normal again, Lenny. Apart from all these tubes and the dialysis, I literally I feel like I'm a full to normal self again.
How much weight did you take off?
Maybe 5 stone,
Okay.
but it's a good job I had the 5 stone on because that's what kept me alive.
Yeah, people don't realize that, but metabolism is not just straight out maintenance of a single weight. We pretty much vary an entire stone just when we're normal.
Yeah, I go up and down by 3 or 4 kilos like between every dialysis. So every 2 days, because they weigh me when I go in and they weigh me when I've finished.
Hmm.
Take They take like 2 or 3 liters of fluid off you at every dialysis to get you back to your normal dry weight. So I know exactly what my weight is almost every day.
Yeah, when I was taking care of my mom down in Florida before she passed, she had a scale, and every morning when I got up, I'd get on the scale and weigh myself. And it's amazing how much weight fluctuates through a day. The more you weigh yourself, the more you can see how the line works. But by weighing at the same time daily in the same frame of reference, get up, take your piss, then weigh. That way you're just weighing your base weight in the morning. I
Yeah,
managed to go from like 220 up to 250 and then bring it back down to around 235 before I left mom's. But I went from my place where I could do what I wanted in whatever time I want to mom's place where I was sort of a sedentary statue there to take care of mom, but I didn't know how long I was going to be there, so I didn't attempt to build any social life. And as it got on towards 6 months, it became apparent to me that I should have joined the gym or something that just got me more exercise. I walked a couple miles every day, but that's not enough when you're just sitting and eating with the rest of your time.
yeah. I think you've got to have 10 minutes of fairly vigorous exercise every day, pretty much. Not that I'm getting it, but going up and down the stairs is pretty much enough exercise for me. I've got
It
friends.
is good exercise. I live about a mile out of town, and so every day I get to do 2 miles of hiking, some days 4 miles of hiking if I go into town twice. And so I have dropped, I'd say I'm probably back at about 225 pounds. Uh, what's that, about 160 kilos?
Right, okay. I do. Well, I only do the kilos, but I'm 80 kilos. That's more or less my base weight. But I used to be 17 stone, and I'm now
Mhm.
just 80 kilos is about 12 and a half stone, I think. So I've put half a stone back on as my base weight, but really I should be a little bit heavier than that. The more fluid I'm carrying, the more weight I'm carrying, the better my legs feel. So I've noticed when I'm on my base weight, my legs are a bit weaker. So I think carrying a
Okay.
bit of fluid is good for my legs, even though they're trying to take it off all the time. Uh, Obviously it's not good for my kidneys, but it's good for my legs. So I have to balance.
Well, I think you're doing okay. I'm glad that you're back in better mental form than you have been for a while. And I think that's where things are really important.
Yeah,
If
I
your mental psyche is out of shape, you're not as functional for your own benefit as you could be.
I lost my ability to fix anything because I was so reliant on the doctors. It was so much going on that I couldn't fix anything.
Hmm.
They could, so it was the right thing to do just to let them do what they needed to do. Although I did argue a little bit here and there, because that's just the way I am. Uh, but yeah, but now that I'm kind of settled, because it took 6 months for me to get my head back, really.
Hmm.
And now I've had another nearly 6 months on top of that, so I'm back to full function mentally again, and which means that yeah, I should be able to sort this kidney thing out. Can't see any real reason why not. If Immunix is working for me back pain and working for me heart, which it is, then I can't see why it wouldn't work for the kidney as well.
Yeah, as long as your fluid capacity is increasing, that would tell me that your kidneys are functioning better.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm keeping an eye on it. I mean, they do tests all the time. I've had so many tests on the heart, you wouldn't believe it. It's like half a dozen tests I've had probably over the last year. But they didn't know there was anything going on with the heart for the first 6 months. And then I had an echocardiogram, which showed up something. And then from there, I think they went in a panic mode, and they've just thrown tests at me since then. But I'm, I'm still a bit, well, no, I believe them now when they said I've had a heart attack. I didn't initially, but I do now. Uh, but I still don't think it wasn't a very bad heart attack, because I would have noticed if it was a bad heart attack. The only time that I've been on the floor is the day they took me into hospital. I collapsed, but I thought that was my legs giving way rather than my heart. But I did black out for a couple of seconds. It could have been a
Do they
heart.
have you on a pacemaker?
What's that?
Do they have you on a pacemaker?
No, no,
Okay.
no. They haven't done any heart surgery or anything. It was just the pills they put me on.
Okay.
So it wasn't a major heart attack, but it was something. There's obviously something being going on, because I can see scarring.
Hmm.
Well, there must have been something going on if there's scarring there. But I wouldn't necessarily. I don't know whether I would call it a heart attack necessarily. Just a very mild, very very mild heart attack, maybe.
Okay.
But in either case, it's fixed now, because I've gone from 25% function on my valve. It was a left ventricular something or other. I can't remember what you call it. But it was the left valve, as the blood leaves, was basically not functioning properly. So it's gone from 25% on on the first scan I had, to 52%, which is normal function.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, that's me curing a heart attack. No
Yeah.
idea how much that
There's
gives people when you say that to people.
there is a lot of information that I found out about how hearts work, because the heart really isn't a pump like the medical people like to tell us it is. What it is more is it's a muscle that is wrapped around itself. But my friend Stellion7, who lives in Spain, has done a lot of discussion about the heart, and he collects heart stones as part of his biogeology. So in the chat, I just put his name down, and he's on YouTube. So
Well, look,
it's worth looking up. His real name is Mike Wilkerson, but a very interesting character. I'm happy to have him as a friend.
right, does he do podcasts? Would I be able to talk to him on a podcast, or just talk to him on Skype?
Um, I would think he'd probably do a podcast with you. I usually run him up on Discord because I know how to catch him there, but watch his YouTube, put something in one of his videos, and I'm sure he'll comment or get back to you. He's a real sharp guy, and the biogeology is awesome stuff. It's
That sounds like my kind of thing, Lenny. It really does.
Yeah, once I got into sociochemistry by combining two fields, I started looking at other people who combine fields, and there's a lot going on if you disregard the history they've told us and start looking at stories as being real to history but embellished. There's there's quite a few other explanations for what's going on. He and I are working on boiled egg theory, something that changes uh, human carbon structure or life carbon structure into stone.
Right.
And
Okay.
so Yeah, his theory is that a lot of what we see here are ancient trees that have been turned to stone, and he's a mud flutter. So,
Right. Okay. Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on there then.
yeah,
Cool.
well worth it. If I if I get a chance, what I'll do is I'll just drop you a link, but I'd rather you find the latest link because that way your conversation will be a little more relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool.
I talked to Karen back about Christmas.
Awesome. How's she doing?
She's doing pretty good. She got herself a bearded dragon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like bearded dragons. I did a
Yeah, and
bearded dragon once.
yeah, I used to keep snakes. And so I like all sorts of odd critters. But her dog, uh, what was his name? Wizard, Golden Wizard,
Oh yeah.
uh, plays with the bearded dragon, and the dragon will ride on the dog's back. Pretty funny.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Is she still on Skype? Do you still connect on Skype, or is she somewhere else?
I have her phone, so I text her on the phone, but I could ask her if she's still on Skype, or in fact, I can text her now and let her know that I'm talking to you and that
Yeah,
you'd
tell her
like to talk with her.
I'd love to talk to her again. Love to. We had such good conversations between the three of us. So good.
Mhm. I'll add on Skype to the idea so that she can tell me if she's not on Skype anymore. But yeah, she went back into normie world to get a job to keep going in that world, and I had lost track of her entirely. But normie world is not normal, and anybody who has left normie world can't really ever go back.
It's difficult to go back. I don't think I could go back now. I really
You,
don't.
you have to change your beliefs,
Yeah.
and changing beliefs is a hard thing to do unless you've got good evidence. And
That's
anymore, you can't believe what you see because the AI can now change video from the past.
yeah. So you've got to question everything. You've literally got to question everything.
Well, the fact that we're usually 40 years behind the military use of things before they roll it out, and they've rolled out AI in the last 10 years, implies to me that they've had AI since the 1960s. If we look at that a little closer, what we might see is that everything in the era of television was specifically constructed for us to believe by an AI. And so,
When I did a college course in the mid 80s, business information technology course, and part of that was, well, I was messing about with it at the time. So Borland had a program called Turbo Prologue, which was artificial intelligence. I didn't really mess too much with it because I was more interested in Pascal, but that was the programming language that they were using at the time. That was like commercial grade programming language. But I'm sure they had the mainframe version of Prologue must have been around in the 60s and 70s.
well, if you go back and look at the Kennedy assassination and I watched one guy come up with a theory that it was a movie squib that exploded in the car, and that when Kennedy fell, he knocked the movie squib so that it caused an explosion, and he crawled under the seat into the trunk and never really was assassinated. It was a way of getting him out of the way so that the mafia and the people who were trying to kill him couldn't. But he had to give everything up and start essentially a duplicate life in another place.
Right.
It's an interesting theory, but for it to be true, they would have been making up stuff for television at that point. And yeah, I can buy that.
I'm not sure. I think, well, I don't know. I've got no way of knowing, but I was working on the principle that Jackie killed him at one point, but I'm now working on the principle it was the guy in the front.
The driver.
Yeah, because at one point he turns around. I don't know whether you can.
I remember watching the motorcade and there were six people in the car. And now, if you watch the motorcade, there's only four people in the car.
Yeah,
It,
know how that happens. So
yeah, there's all sorts of things that they have used to make it so that we can't trust our own memories of events. And now that they can change the events in past time, I just don't know anymore. Maybe this is a artificial world construct and that we're here on the way to somewhere where when we land we'll have to apply a new construct, and so we get parts of constructs that we take part in, see how it works, and then lose the thread in time and end up on a similar thread on a different timeline. I also wonder if we can't be on several timelines simultaneously so that you and I could be talking on, say, a 10,000 year timeline and also both be present on a year to year timeline like life works and also be present on a microsecond timeline so that the difference between the timelines is not the mechanism of what's happening, it's the focus on how it's happening.
yeah, something just occurred to me, Lenny. When I got
Mhm.
sick initially, when I started throwing up and I started peeing myself endlessly, I was doing quantum jumping.
Mhm.
It could be I moved from a healthy timeline onto a sick timeline because I was trying to move onto a timeline where I could generate an income.
Mhm.
Now that I've got evidence that my healing stuff works, I can generate an income with it. But I couldn't do
Yeah,
that. I was healthy.
it took a little time, but I'm glad to hear that. My income, I've already quantum jumped. I have enough that I can do just about anything I want, but I spent so much time out of the system that just getting into the system at a bare level in order to be able to handle money through the banking system was a whole lot of work. But I've got money to invest now, and what I think I'm going to do is just make it into short term investments and personal loans to individuals to get them over a threshold so that they're ahead of the game instead of behind the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, apart from the healing stuff that I'm seriously considering going back into, uh, I've got a I've got like a social security payment now as well because they've assessed my situation, and because I can't walk very far and I've got the heart thing going on apparently, and the kidney thing, I get money from the government. So I'm on way more welfare than I was. So it generated me income from that point of view, but it's also given me a way of generating an income from doing healing work for other people because I've got a story to tell now, which I didn't
Yeah.
have. Well, I did have, but not in the same way, not with the same intensity. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yes, it does. How old are you?
59.
Oh, okay. So you're in the range where you'll be collecting the equivalent of American Social Security here pretty soon anyway.
But
Or
the
does
pension age,
medical cover that?
yeah, pension age is 67 here.
67. Okay. That's still a few years to go.
It's got a few years yet, but obviously I've paid into the system for 35, 40 years anyway. So, uh, I mean, you automatically get healthcare because we pay national insurance contributions, so everybody pays into a healthcare system, pays into the healthcare system, and then when you need it, you just get it, and it's pretty much free. Everything's free. If you don't have a reasonable income coming in, everything's free. But sometimes you've got to pay for subscriptions if you've got an income. But the treatment's all free, so I don't have to worry about any of that. And you get a welfare payment. I get a welfare payment because I've got people coming in to cook food for me and do cleaning and stuff. So and social services takes care of that. But if I need to pay for taxis and stuff, then I get a payment that covers mobility.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely differences between the system in Britain and the system over here in the US. And I think that a lot of change is going to happen in the next year or two because we've reached a point where the things that most normies were taught to believe in are falling apart, and the normies can't fix them and can't understand how they're not helping. But there's too many cooks in the kitchen and hands in the pantry so that people have learned to work the system for their own benefit to the detriment of the mass of people. But everybody at whatever level they're on has to look out for themselves first because
Yeah,
otherwise they get taken advantage of. And
yeah,
what that looks like differs in a lot of different ways.
yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by American politics. I know you don't want to go into the politics of it, and I'm cool with that. But I'm absolutely fascinated because what they're doing at the moment is phenomenal.
What the Democrats are doing to the Republican nominees is going to come back at them in spades. I don't think there'll be a Democratic Party in 2 years. I really don't. I
Right?
think that the whole thing is absurd. But back in the 90s, when I worked with the Reform Party and the Ross Perot movement, I saw how dirty politics was and said, can't play this game no more. So I haven't paid attention to politics since 2003, 2004, with the exception of local politics when a friend of mine wants to run for an office.
Right. No, yeah, it's what Trump and Elon Musk are doing between them is phenomenal, and hopefully Robert Kennedy Jr. will get stuck in the same way.
Well, he'll be up for nomination beginning of next week, should be when he gets approved or kicked out. But by my observations, everybody's going to be approved.
It looks like it, yeah. Problem is that all the people he's got around him are all mRNA people. They're all new. They're all new technology people. So he's going to have a battle on his hands. But if he's the guy who's in charge, he can set the agenda at least.
What I would like to know is how we can get it so that the intelligence agency feeds are observed by more people who know what's going on, because the secrecy in intelligence has it so that the spy agencies can make up whatever they want and not be held accountable. So I'm more interested in Tulsi Gabbard and how things are going to fall out in that way. But the real thing is to design something that works completely differently.
Yeah, I think they'll get to that point. It might take a couple of tries, but you've got to iterate from where you are, haven't you? So
I
you've
don't
got to.
know if the monetary system falls apart, we might not have to iterate from where we are.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible as well. Uh,
It looks like we've been talking for an hour now.
yeah, yeah, we could
So,
wrap it up.
yeah, I would like to continue conversation with you. And so maybe the next time you've got a scheduled podcast where you're looking for someone to talk with, we can talk about some of the different things in some depth. Uh, for sure, you can send me Reiki because I have not been as well this winter as normal, but it hasn't been my interior health, so to speak. I'm not sick. I just not quite there and losing interest in a lot of things that I used to pay attention to without replacing that interest in something fulfilling.
Right. Okay.
So maybe we talk about how chemistry works or something that makes sense in a healing way. But I think you're doing good work, and I want to help you get more done.
Oh, cool, Lenny. That will be phenomenal. And I will I'll send some energy over in your direction. And take a
Uh,
look at. There's a YouTube channel called Cure Drive.
Q
CURE.
Drive?
Cure.
Type in the chat.
CURE. It's CURE DRIVE.
Okay.
That's where all the Immunix stuff is. That's where all the free stuff is, anyway.
Okay.
If you, if, it's a simple, as I said, it's a simple formula. I've put out a few podcasts along the way with the formula in it, so you can just use it and adapt it for what you need.
Cool.
I mean, you don't have to know. I don't know how it works because it's not my system, but it seems to work. So at least you can test it.
Mm-hmm. Well, to design a test and use yourself as a guinea pig doesn't always work properly because in the process of doing things, you no longer follow the test protocols. And even if you're making an improvement in how you do things, if it's not part of the protocol per se, you can't use that test in a study for duplication because you violated the protocol.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm looking at designing games and ways of playing things with several different groups of people doing the same stuff to compare and contrast what they do. We'll see what the next iteration looks like.
Yeah, well, keep me posted, Lenny. What I'll do, I think, do you want to do like a weekly half hour or a weekly hour or something like that for a little while and see how we get on?
Okay.
We're gonna,
Thursday is a good day on my schedule because I don't have things I have to do. I have a
right,
regular Monday morning meeting that gets me caught up on with my AI guy, and he is forming a social clubhouse, a construct that allows people to do things within the construct all in the same place. So that's in Gathertown, and there's a link on my new way site. But if you want to use the link and come check it out, let me know and I'll go into Gathertown and meet you there. And then I can show you some of the interesting things that are setting up. But we're looking at the next generation of stuff, not this generation. So it's not ready for prime time yet.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. I'll take a look, Lenny. But yeah, Thursday kind of afternoon time. My time works for me, and if it works for you, that's cool.
Yeah, the time we had this call was 9 in the morning for me. That's great. Plus or minus 2 hours from that time would work fine.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. So it's roughly about 3 o'clock, isn't it? My time. Well, just after. I was 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll keep in touch on Skype since we know we're both here.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
yeah, I've de emphasized using Skype, but I have some people who like to use it. And so that'll keep us good. And then we can have guests like Karen or Lizzie or anyone else that wants to come and chat with us
Yeah,
and see where we can go.
yeah. I might invite Lizzie next week, actually, if that's cool with you.
Sure. Yeah, I talk to her on Skype about once every 3 weeks. And we were going to talk last week, and she got another call and never got back. So I do need to talk to her again. And plus, she takes things into a whole new ballpark that I rarely ever think about.
Yeah, Lizzie's interesting. Lizzie keeps everything simple when she's talking, but you can tell she's thought about everything for years and years and years.
Yes.
She, so she's keeping it simple deliberately because she knows how complicated it is. Does that make sense?
Well, that, and I think she also had some health concerns that forced her to simplify,
Yeah, yeah.
as
Yeah,
we all do
we
as we
will
tend
have
to
a chat.
age.
Yeah, we'll have a chat. If I can get her on the call next week, we'll have a chat next week and see what comes out of it. All right, cool. Huh?
Excellent. All right. You take good care of yourself and good luck with further dialysis and hospital care. But it seems like the British medical system is way far ahead of the American medical system for pay benefits for doctors.
I don't. Yeah, I mean they're all very. Yeah, they're very well paid. The doctors are. The nurses not so much, but the doctors, the doctor consultants particularly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the amount of money that goes into medical, legal, and political, that sort of thing, they should equalize the salary ranges of all professionals all across the board. It annoys me when you see scientists getting less than 100,000 and basketball players getting more than 20 million. Something wrong in that world.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's one of those things. Is you need to justify 20 million, you need 20 million people following you to sell T-shirts too, don't you?
Well, it isn't even that. Sports is a loss leader for rich people to get tax write offs.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, the system whereby the people who have money can print money has to stop. It's going to be imbalanced as long as the people who have the money can just print more and do whatever they want. And even though I watch Musk and his Doge do things that I think are good, I have no love loss for Mr. Musk.
Oh, I don't trust him as far as I could throw him because he's a technocrat. So he'll put a chip in your brain as soon as look at you,
Yep.
and he's obviously not trustworthy. But if he's open, if he's if he ever decides to open source Grok, that'll keep the AI stuff in check a little bit. And obviously,
I don't know. I have not been impressed with Grok on X.
No, I thought it was all right. It seems to come up with reasonable answers most of the time.
Yeah, but in coming up with the reasonable, we eliminate the eccentric. And I think
Yeah,
we need to we need to further people's eccentric capabilities to have everybody be a unique individual and functional in this world, as opposed to just making the answers easy and having a bunch of clones saying MAGA, 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 or DEI, DEI, DEI. You know, it's funny to watch this DEI crap come down and then see people like the NFL commissioner saying, no, we're not going to do that. How many females do you know that play professional football?
personally, none.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the NFL to say they want DEI when they have a only sex game that you put a female on a football field and she'd get killed. So I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that when you step back and look at the base logic that is used in the society today, it is severely lacking.
Absolutely, it's it all went topsy turvy quite a while ago. Which is the point that I stepped out of it. Really, it's like I got to the point where I was, and it's like 20 odd years ago. Uh, yeah, it was literally 1998 is the time that I stepped out of all of that mainstream stuff. And I've been struggling ever since to kind of just keep my head above water, but I've managed.
Yeah, I stepped out in 2001 officially, but when I left graduate school and went into the working world, that was the step from where everything I had been brought up to through the end of my schooling met real world and convinced me over the next 10 years that real world was a fake. And ever since then, I've been floundering, but walking to my own drumbeat.